Phil Bennett, back from a great vacation in the wine country in California, joins us. And everybody's fired up, Coach, that you're back with us today. How was vacation? Do you just chill, relax, and sip wine?
You know, we get up, we work out, and then we start on the day of eating and drinking. and I will tell you this, though, Smoke, we don't last very long. By 8:30 or 9, we're down. And we never get out of hand. We always sort of take it slow and easy. It's really, you know, my wife isn't a banker, a mortgage banker. And I told her, I said, you know, when we got back yesterday, she started getting that bass back in her voice. I told her, I said, well, I can tell vacation's about over. You've got that work voice starting to get on. I said, you need to keep this vacation voice a little bit longer. But you can tell she was tensing up. I don't have to worry about that. You know, since I'm retired, I'm pretty much every day's a vacation.
Phil, Gary Patterson was at Baylor for a little bit, consulting. He was actually at practice today, as a matter of fact, but he's no longer there in an official capacity. And can you kind of describe what being a consultant is like, and how that works, and that sometimes you can fit in, sometimes you can be there a year, and sometimes your work can be done probably pretty quickly?
You know, Paul, I'll tell you something. I've been fortunate enough to visit with a lot of coaches in a consulting role, both in college and the NFL. And I find myself rather quickly with the people that you're dealing with, is this head coach mandated, or is there really something they want, you know, from your wisdom and your path to use? You know, I've seen both sides of it. I went to one place in particular. They were curious, the whole staff, you know, they were wanting to learn about the Reed game, college Reed game, and it was a lot of fun. And then I went to another place, and I could tell it was mandated by the head coach, and there wasn't a lot of interest in the input that I could give them. So I think it varies on what you're looking for. And I would think at Baylor, just looking at their young staff defensively, that's where Dave thought, you know, this guy could come in and really help Matt and those guys grow as coaches.
What was your first reaction when you just heard that he was going to be coming in to help, and especially with a guy like Aranda who's taking more control of the defense? I mean, do their styles even align really defensively in what they're trying to do?
You know, I think they have some similarities, and Gary was a player at Kansas State when I was the defensive coordinator at Iowa State. I've known Gary for a long time, and Gary loves football, and I think I told David this. I think one of the things last year that was a problem, I've said it, and it's not a much critical as it was just something that I saw. You know, I didn't see Dave interacting, helping the defense. I thought when he hired Matt, who I think is a good young coach, he's a learning coach, I knew he was going to have somebody over him that guided him. And, I still remember the last drive against West Virginia when we had to stop them. Dave was not a factor in that drive, and it baffled me why you would put Matt in that position and consequently lose the game where, you know, now I hear that he's all in. So I thought Gary could be that sort of buffer between them.
Yeah, and Aranda, when he came in studio, once they made the decision he was coming back, admitted that. We asked him that question about the last drive against West Virginia, were you on the headsets? And he admitted he wasn't. You could tell that it was kind of hard for him to, but that's just the way they ran. And I just text somebody that would know, you know, like, is this a random thing? Are they back to dating again? And he said, I just think a friend attending practice. He was jotting some things down and notes and also visiting with Dave. You think he just missed football so much?
Well, we all do. We all, you know, I've got a little agenda the next 2 weeks where I'm going to go. But, I would think, though, I think Dave is a guy, you know, I told you back when I was the coordinator at Pittsburgh, I used to have late night calls. Dave would call me when he was at Hawaii. He's a football guy. And I think that Dave realizes that he's got to get more involved this year. And from what I'm told, he is more involved. And I think Gary will be a nice sounding piece for him. You know, Gary knows a lot of football. He's seen a lot. And I told you this. I don't get caught up in the past and what we were. You know, I always had tremendous amount of respect for Gary, and I knew what he could do for Baylor, and I was sort of excited about it. And I'm glad that he came to practice, and I think he can help those guys. You know, I say this again. I think Matt is a good young coach. He just needs a little guidance.
When he walked away, then it was very abrupt when he did. Was that a surprise to you? Do you think that that's just two guys that have different philosophies? They're not listening, or what? Why do you think that happened?
Well, you know, first of all, it's a location thing. You know, Gary he's inbred in Fort Worth, and he was driving every day back and forth. You know, he wasn't staying in Waco, and I would think dealing, you know, with that situation, I think Gary's probably still wanting to coach, and I think I don't know, and this is just pure speculation. I think that he looks and says, "Hey, what's it going to look like if we don't get this thing going?" You know, and I'm not saying he pulled out because he doesn't think, but he might just say, "Hey, I might be fresher and can do more if I just stay at home and try to get a job after the season." That's the only thing I can really think about.
How much do coaches always want to make sure they're not the smartest person in the room, and why would you not want to pick someone's brain like that?
I've said this. Knowledge is power. I've told my players every day. I have never gone around a coach that I laugh. I talked about one time I went into Soda High School, and there was a coach in there, and he was showing me something, and I'm telling you, this guy was brilliant. And we talked, and I think we all think, hey, we have to know it all. Well, that's not the case. One of the things I admit, every year I ever coached, I learned more than I did the year before. Mm-hmm. It's constant learning. You know, I heard a team doctor one time told me, I said, what keeps you invigorated with your job? He said, I learn something new every day. Every day in my job, I learn something new. And I think I thought to myself, I said, hell, that's me. Mm-hmm. That's what and if you're asking questions, you're learning. I love to go in the off season. I wouldn't go to as many defensive clinics as I would go to offensive line clinics, and I would go to offensive coordinator clinics. I wanted to know what they were teaching. What was I trying to stop? And I think, you know, that's the thing that Dave, I think Dave's a seeker of answers. I think Gary and him, I really thought it could be something that would help, once again, the whole defensive staff to be more productive.
Phil, what do you think about Kalen DeBoer, first year, taking over for the greatest college football coach that's ever lived?
I like his confidence. One thing I know about Kalen DeBoer, of just watching him, he's comfortable who he is. He doesn't try to present an image. I don't think he's intimidated by Nick being around. I don't think he's going to mandate, hey, we got to keep this or keep, you know, even though it's been on a smaller level until last year, he's always been a winner. He's always surrounded himself with people that he believes in. He has a very good staff. I just really believe that he's a guy that when they were looking, they said, this guy's not going to be intimidated by the situation. Now, with that said, they've got their work cut out for them. I don't believe that. I think Nick had a presence there, an edge that gave them a toughness that many schools didn't have. Whether they get that back with the guy from South Alabama on defense, I don't know. but I think he's a good coach, and I think it might take some time, maybe not with Milrose, but I think he will do fine there.
Phil, you got 4 teams going from the Pac-12 to the Big Ten, 4 teams going from the Pac-12 to the Big 12. You got Oklahoma and Texas going to the SEC. Who amongst those teams do you feel like there will be a bit of a learning curve or a buffer period to try to get acclimated, or do you think that even exists at all going from one power conference to another?
I think so much is generated through the media. I read something the other day. Oregon's never fared well against power teams. And, I'm telling you, I've watched Oregon. They can play with anybody. I don't think they'll have a problem. I've got a friend that is coaching right now at USC. He's an offensive line coach, Josh Henson. They're seeing there's a lot of teams that will fit in fine in both leagues. Now, the ones that are usually the lower level teams might struggle, and I'm not saying that what I'm interested to see is the time. I mean, you're going to have everybody leaving on Thursday. I mean, it's going to be a long damn week when USC has to go to Michigan State, and for a conference game, and it's going to be the logistics is something. And everybody out there in California, I was reading the LA Times. They're talking about getting people involved in the timing, sleeping patterns, all those things. But I think the teams will be. I think that they will all fit into their new league. I'm anxious. One of the teams I'm anxious to watch is Oklahoma in the SEC. People have forgotten that Oklahoma beat the stuffing out of Alabama in the Sugar Bowl. People say, well, it's a bowl game. That game was not even close, and Alabama was good. Oklahoma, when I was at Baylor, I think, and you might correct me here, Smokey, I think for 2 years in a row they played Tennessee and dominated them. I mean, it wasn't even a close game.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm anxious to see. Plus, I've got a vested interest there with Seth being there. I think there'll be a team that will be a surprise to some people.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned Seth Luttrell. There was a story written about him. I think it was today by John Hoover. Not the new normal. Is that like what the offense he runs that Oklahoma has seen through all these changes that people are used to, but there's something a little bit more unique about what he does?
Steph is a lot like what we were at Baylor, what Art was, what Kendall does. And I think Jeff sort of got away from it a little bit. But I mean, they're going to be physical. I mean, they're tight ends. Yeah, you remember how we used to run the ball with our tight ends being, and I think now they're going to be both tempo and non-tempo, and which we evolved to. So, that's the thing that I think that you're going to see. They really feel good about their Arnold, their quarterback. That they've lost some guys on the O-line, but they feel like their skill level is at both in the secondary and receiver are better than any time since they've been there. So Steph is very he's calculated. He's not a big talker, but he feels like they could be good.
So we saw TCU announce, I guess it was a week or two ago, that they had brought on board officially Dana Holgorsen and also Todd Graham. And I know they got Ken Wilson also on the staff. They got a handful of head coaches, former head coaches on that staff. And I remember Sonny mentioned it to us at Big 12 Media Days, I think it was, that Andy Avalos will be going up against Dana Holgorsen in terms of, getting that look from the offensive side of things. And then Kendall will be going up against Todd Graham or learning from Todd Graham. What do you think of those pairings and just kind of what Sonny's created there in terms of the former head coaches and the, the challenges that come with that, but also the benefits?
Well, first of all, I think you've got two guys that have had great success at a high level. I've sort of mentored Todd Graham. And he's a football coaching dude. Love working for him. He's a football guy. I think he'll be good for Kendall and Sonny. Doesn't want, he's not looking for attention. He's had the attention. And I think the same thing with Dana. Dana's trying to get his feet reset. And all we got to think back 2 years ago, Houston was on a roll. I don't know what happened, but we all know nowadays everybody's got a short fuse when you're not doing well. So I think it's going to help both Andy. It's going to help Kendall, and to have guys. I think it's going to help Sonny. Sonny's going to go in there and say, "Hey, we're fixing to go play Texas Tech on a Thursday or what." Just program things that really his ops guy doesn't know the answer, but he's got two guys that have done it at a very high level at big schools, and he can say, "How would you do this?" Now, and you know what? Both of those guys are smart enough to say the right thing, say their thoughts, and not press it. That's one of the things I told Kendall. I said, this is a win-win for you. I used to walk in the offensive coordinator's room when we were anywhere. When I was with Art, I said, "What would you do versus this? What would you do?" Because those discussions are what make you better, and I think that's a smart move. I think that both, like I said, are mature enough that they'll know their role. I don't think anybody's going to get intimidated, but they'll also have another set of eyes, and they'll give them some thought. I think you're weak here, you're not as good here, or you're good here. That will give them some other eyes seeing what they're doing.
Phil, coaches aren't coaches, you and everyone that's been a part of the profession, very anal about schedule, about not the games you're playing, but every day, the schedule, meetings, film work, practice. Is that going to be challenged with what you brought up earlier? I wrote this down when you mentioned these games. Ohio State playing and whatever. Is it going to have to learn on the fly?
Yes, it is. I don't know if you knew this, but it always blew my mind. And, I live in College Station, and Jimbo Fisher, it pissed me off that they would leave. I don't care if they were playing in Lubbock. They would go on Thursday. And I learned this way back from Henry Ballard, Bill Snyder. RC was like this. Get a schedule and don't upset the schedule too much. We Bill Snyder, we would get to a place at 5 o'clock on Friday because we would leave as late as we could just so the guys could stay on their normal schedule. A&M would leave on Thursday after practice. And, these kids, they justified it by saying we're taking tutors. Well, that was BS. The tutors didn't work on those games. They ended up spending millions of wasted dollars. And I truly believe that's why they haven't won an away game in years. You get kids off their schedule, and you're not getting maximum ability.
Well, you have a plane that takes you right there. It doesn't seem like if you got to leave on Thursday because you got to catch a flight, I get that. But if you've got a plane, especially
was the only school in America that did that. And I told the AD that it's the stupidest. I would tell anybody to listen. It was the stupidest thing I have ever heard. Now, if you're flying from Seattle to Ann Arbor, Michigan, you might have an issue. That might be, to get acclimated, it might be a doable thing. But I just never understood it.
Phil, what do you think about Mike Elko and maybe a return to, he's the most coached like R.C. Slocum since R.C. Slocum, really. Defense first, not a lot of like frills with Mike Elko. R.C. is not a guy with a lot of frills either.
I think that Mike has, he's sure saying the right thing. I like his thought process. I went out last spring. I was invited to watch him practice. I really enjoyed it. There was a lot of coaching going on, not a lot of wasted time between things going on. I am a Colin Klein fan, and so with Mike running the defense basically and Colin, I think without question that they're going to have some potential there. I think that quarterback play. If Weigman's the guy, which I don't know, he's shown signs, but also shown signs he couldn't do it. If they can get that, and supposedly defensively, Mike has said, I talked to RC today, and he sort of seems to agree with him. He said his front seven is maybe as good as he's ever had, so that's a good start.
All right, well, since you brought up Colin Klein, we have to bring up the fourth down or the goal line stand in a game where they came in highly ranked, number one in the country, and you guys beat them up badly.
Yeah, as you can get ranked.
Yeah, they were one. There's no like above one. What was that game? And there were certain games that kick-started what you guys did. But looking back at that game in that season, what did that mean to the program and to the defense and overall?
I think I might have told you this before, Smoke, but that season we lost for a 4 or 5 game span. We lost like 3 of our starters in the secondary, and we were still trying to get it together defensively. We weren't gelling. We weren't playing very good. We had that catastrophe at West Virginia, played terrible at Texas. We go to OU and go in, and Bryce Hager had played bad. Had really played poorly. We were actually missing. We just weren't gelling. And I moved Rodney to starting linebacker, bench Bryce. We play OU and we played pretty good. We came back, had a chance. We lost the game, but defensively we played good. They come in. Of course, I know Coach. I have a history with him. And we made checks. I told Bryce, I said, you'll either win or lose this game for us, because they had certain tendencies, and we made calls off that tendencies. And Colin Klein to this day still laughs. He said, Coach, your middle linebacker was calling our plays. But we could do it because Bryce was such a smart guy. That game, along with Lake Sistrunk, they couldn't handle Lake. If you remember, every time he broke the line of scrimmage, he was gone. Their safeties could not tackle him. And I think that game propelled us to finish the season. You correct me if I'm wrong. I think we had 5 straight wins. We beat them. We beat Texas Tech. We beat Oklahoma. The big win was Oklahoma State, if you remember, to go to the bowl in San Diego.
Mm-hmm.
I told you after the game, you came on the bus.
Yep.
You remember that?
Yep.
I said, we will win the conference next year.
You did.
And we had matured. We were already there offensively. And we matured, and I knew that was the start, when we won those games, starting with Kansas State and beating Oklahoma State, which was very good, and then trouncing UCLA. I thought we had the mixings of getting it right.
Still can't believe that in the post game, I was sitting there looking through the stats, and I talking to Phil Bennett, longtime college football coach, former Baylor defensive coordinator, but elsewhere, that they had thrown like 12 or 13 passes. When I said that to Art, I remember him like, really? I think he kind of knew that, but he didn't realize it was that low.
It kept Florence from breaking RG3's record. He was going to break his season record. But you know what they did? It was crazy. This is where I always tell people, coaching matters. They were so afraid of the pass. This is a testimony to Art Brown. Their safeties were 15 yards deep because they were so afraid. They did that NFL 4 cross deal, and I'm telling you, all we did is check runs, and it was like Art was, and he didn't care. He said, I didn't know what kind of death we were going to cause, but they were dying. And he said, whether it be run or pass. And I think Florence was like, I think we threw 12 passes. I think he completed 10. It was huge.
How many former players contact you now just to say hi?
I had a great call the other day from Colin Brent. I talked to all of them. I talked, this deal on November 3rd has got a lot of them. And I laughed. I told one of them, and I'm not going to tell you who, I said, it's surprising me the way I wore your ass out. You want to see me again.
Oh, my
He
God.
said, I'm not coming. He said, you need to tell me I'm not coming if you're not coming.
I bet you, and I won't because you don't want to say it, but the next time I talk to you, I can get it within 2 guesses.
Well, it's got to be Orion Stewart, right?
No, I know. I don't think that would have been my second guess. My first one.
It's his teammate.
Oh, Ahmad.
Yeah.
Yeah, those two were like, that was a combination from hell, but also a talented young guy.
Yeah.
Hey, I was never. People told me, man, you always act like you were pissed. I said, no. I said, those two knuckleheads. I said, it was a love-hate relationship. I loved them and they hated me. I was on them, but they will tell you, we always made it fun. It was I always laugh. Bryce Hager and I talk, and Bryce will tell me, he goes, it used to amaze me how you could chew me out all practice and get on me, do this. We're walking off the practice field. Like, how's your old man doing? What's going on? And he goes, then hell, I didn't want to talk to you. And you're asking me about my dad, my brother. I said, well, you just got to flip a switch. I said, it's over.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you do. What does that event mean? And I remember when I text you, and obviously it's for pretty much who wants to come back, and I think it's great that they're doing that.
Yeah.
What's the overall thought process? Because we had Bryce Petty on after that was announced.
Right. Yeah. You know what? Hey, so many of those kids are going to be back. I'm telling you, I'm coming. I'm coming, and I wouldn't. That's a special time in my life because I thought we did something that was. It wasn't an ordinary. We had won the Big East at Pitt, but this was different. Art had went there, the challenge, just like Coach Tass and I talked about. What they did in '74 was special. And I think ours was double special because we were able to do it back-to-back years. And so many of the kids that we had brought in there were involved in both of them. So it was just it just makes me smile.
Well, I'm going to ask you this. Do you feel like that there's some that aren't going to want to come back just because they're still kind of just still hurting a little bit?
The ones I've talked to, the guys that were contributing, no.
Good.
I think these people are guys. They understand. There was, and I've told you this. We were slandered. There's no doubt about it, and it was handled horribly. And I could go on and on, but I'm not. The thing that's important to me is the guys who did it. It's a player's game, and the guys who played the game and gave all of us so much fun and just satisfying wins and great efforts. They're coming back. Those guys will come back because they know that what they did at Baylor was special. And I just I think that their time here. I've told people this many times. Our kids who were here with us, they had fun at Baylor. They respect and they played hard for Baylor. So I don't think there might be some. I'm not speaking for everybody, but I think the majority of those kids, it's important to them that they get back. And I don't know if because of what happened in 16, if they ever got the total awards thing that they should have got from 13 and 14. But yes, I think they'll be back.
All right, I got one more question. This comes from the chat room. What were your thoughts as a coach? Coaches are paranoid because, you want to make sure that people don't know what you're doing, but then everybody sees everything. What are your thoughts about what should happen with Connor Stallions?
First of all, that's been going on since the game was started.
Okay.
I mean, and I'm talking about from stealing signals to Barry Switzer. Do you remember the Darryl Royal Barry Switzer thing?
Mm-hmm.
Having a guy. I can remember a Hall of Fame coach telling me when he was a GA at a place that he went and jogged around Nebraska's track and watched them practice. and he dressed up as a professor, wore glasses and a stocking hat, and jogged around. That, it's been going on forever. If I can say one thing, I've worked for people that I have never in my life felt like I would need to compromise my integrity. And I've told people this same thing at Baylor, cheating, or I think it was done. I think without question, the coaches were involved. Harbaugh was involved, whether he knows it or not. I'm not saying he was directly involved, but when you have guys, Partridge and all of them going, the D-line, the head coach now going to Connor Sally, they were involved, and it was an edge that they chose to take, and it's been done through the beginning of the time. Some coaches do it more than others. I had a guy one time I worked for asked me to do something, and I said, no, I won't do that. I'm not one of those guys. I'm not wasting time trying to steal signals or get this. I want to win the right way. And I think that 99% of the coaches do that. Now, I've had guys tell me. I've had a guy tell me when I was the head coach at SMU, we lost a couple of close games with him. One of his coaches got fired. First thing he did, called me. He goes, I want to tell you something. He said, we've had your signals, and we've watched you practice, and we had a guy go in your office and get a game plan.
What?
This true story. Yeah. Came in my office and got a game plan, and he told me, hey, when I was at Baylor and we were at the Cotton Bowl, they got our practice film because we didn't take our practice film out of what do you call it? The machine up there. Yeah, they ended up with our practice.
Michigan State?
Yes, they did. Yes, they did.
Well, who was supposed to have taken it out of the machine? Is that guy?
It was like all the bowls supposed to be protected.
Right.
And they, and it wasn't. I mean, they saw it, and one of their coaches left, and called me, told me, sure it is. And you know what's funny about it? It had nothing to do. I mean, of course, we were up. We had the game won. We made a mistake by not running the ball out, and just the numbers. They had nothing to do it, but just the fact. One of the things that was they saw something on it. If you remember, they got a used onside kick, and he told me they used, because we do on Thursday we do onside hand things. They saw something and they knew where they were going, and it ended up hitting them. They felt like it helped them, get the ball back, in that last 3 minutes of the game. So in my answer to you, it's been done everywhere. And you can say what they did was totally illegal, but in different things, whether stealing signs, getting playbooks, watching, having some high school coach watch them. I mean, it's still going to go on. I believe that. Anybody, the one time that somebody gets caught is not going to end it.
Phil, thank you very much, man. Everyone's glad you're back with us, and glad you had a great time in California, and we'll see you soon.
I'm looking forward to the season and visiting with you guys.
Thank you very much. Phil Bennett with us in 40 minutes or so. I know it's a very lengthy segment with him. I want him to write 5 books.